Hi folks, with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I want to talk about government grants, taxpayer money being handed out by the gazillion dollars to various groups and organisations. Now we've all seen, I think, or heard about the USA boondoggle and Act Blue and various organisations controlled by the globalists and their flunkies that hand out money to NGOs and all sorts of activist groups. But there's also vast sums of money the government hands out in grants to so-called research, or in this instance, medical research. And I saw it came into my feed, so I had a little look at it, and I was surprised to see in a Senate committee hearing just how many tens of billions is handed out in research grants, mostly to universities or in some cases to pharmaceutical companies, but in this case looking at specific scientific research organisations and those that may be embedded within the tertiary education university system. And now a lot of money's being given out. I don't know how accountable the people who receive the money are, but the Trump administration has recently started to institute some sort of program of accountability. And so, well, what do you, okay, you got 10 million bucks last year or 20 million or whatever it was, or over the recent years, what have you accomplished? What have you achieved? What's the money being spent on? And what results have you got? What peer-reviewed results and what progress have you made? So, which is quite reasonable if you're funding programs to the tune of tens of millions of dollars, then you've got a right to ask, well, what are you accomplishing for that money? Now, there's also the Trump administration in the United States, again, quite reasonably saying, well, if you can't say what you've achieved, or for that matter, if you've achieved nothing, then we don't see why we should keep on giving you taxpayers' money. So unless you can show us a reason why your funding should continue, we're going to reduce it or cut it off. So there are a number, there's I don't know, you couldn't go through the amount of programs that taxpayers funding, all of which in medical research are focused on things like finding the cure for cancer, for example, finding cure for causes of infant death, death of children in childbirth, all these sorts of things. Well, all of these things are laudable causes, by the way. If someone said, well, let's give money to research that's going to, cure cancer or save children from dying, I mean, who would be against that? Nobody. I would never be against it. I would be fully in support of it, if indeed the money is going to do that. But as was certainly I found out, and it took me 10 minutes online to do it. This is not a big tough gig. I took the names of some of the programs, and they already sounded rather suspicious based on the people who were getting questioned in the Senate hearings, and then the amount of leftist journals that were quickly rushing to their defense made it look rather suspicious. Now, one article that I saw that got me onto it was, they argued, well, okay, it's supposed to be for finding the cure for cancer, the taxpayer grant of money, is supposed, but do we really need to care about that? I mean, why is that even relevant? The thing is that the research program, or alleged research program, is employing a lot of black lesbians, and a lot of black lesbians are getting good jobs, high-paying jobs. They're being they're prestigious jobs, and so we should really look at that. The fact that they're supposedly researching a cure for cancer and not doing anything of the sort, or whatever they're doing is utterly ineffective. We need to look past that and look at the diversity, equity, inclusion objectives that are being met here. And they were unashamedly saying that these research grants, well, they shouldn't really be for research. God, look, we've got to say it is, so the troglodytes in the street are happy, but the reality is this is just a jobs program for black lesbians. And have you got a problem with that, you fucking Nazi bigot Hitler? So anyway, again, 10 minutes online was all it took. And So I had a look at, I think I got 4 or 5 programs I made a note of, and I went to look at them. Now, in every case, I couldn't find a single straight white man in any of them. It was like a straight white males are definitely not welcome in these research programs, that's for sure. It's a 90% female, and the white women where they exist are, from what I can tell, are lesbians and feminist activists. And then there's a various bunch of, hangers on, the classic sort of proverbial black lesbian and Asian lesbian and a lot of blue-haired lesbians, this sort of stuff. But there's a couple of people that were sort of put up to speak. And so I took their names down, then went and again, it takes seconds to find them online. They're actually members of radical activist NGO groups. So this is what we've got here. Let's just look at the reality of this. It's just a jobs program. It's a doll's house. It's a sandpit for leftist activists and lesbian academics and, all this sort of thing. And they're supposed to be researching a cure for cancer. Now they all, run around in white coats, looking very self-important and looking through microscopes, and that's me. Ooh. I guess the real downside of this is that they've got an absolute emphasis on DEI and affirmative action and race gender quotas to get employed here. So the least qualified, least capable, least able to contribute meaningfully to a research program are the only people getting hired. Those most able to do quality research are not being hired into these programs. So straight away, it's straight away, they're assuming their intention is to do quality research, then they're viciously undermining the intent and purpose of their own program, for goodness sakes. But it goes further than that. Again, it didn't take much looking. Most of the staff that are on there are admin staff that are being given jobs. They're just administrative sort of stuff. No one knows what they do. I don't think they know what they do. But they seem to spend an awful lot of time engaged in activism, not engaged in any research or documenting anything or contributing in some way to the research, a worthwhile research outcome. And they're also supposed to be students. Now, a lot of them are being brought in from overseas, supposedly as skilled labour, using the H-1B program, because universities are not limited as private sector is. Private companies are. They can bring in an unlimited number of H-1Bs. They just have to merely assert that they need these people and that they have some skill the university needs. But what the university is doing are mass importing an activist class, giving them bullshit jobs at the expense of the American taxpayer, such as these research programs where hundreds of them are being employed all across all universities across the United States. But their real job actually isn't working in the research department. It's to run around agitating and stirring, waving placards and screaming down with America. That's what's going on here. And so these research programs are nothing again but a silly little doll's house, a sandpit, an activist fantasy world of placard waving, and they're just using research as the front, the headline reason for stealing, I would argue, stealing the taxpayers' money. Now, when some of these research programs, and some of them already been cut back, I understand, and the leftist media, the CNNs and all that sort of stuff, they go out and so are you saying that little babies would be saved by your research? And Trump took the money away from little babies. Is that what you're saying? And of course, they've done no worthwhile research of any type, nor have they done over the 10 years they've been getting these gazillions of dollars. It's just a bullshit jobs program to inflate the number of diversity hires that they've got there. None of those people are qualified to be doing research that's got even the slightest hope of helping babies or anyone else for that matter. So a lot of emotional type misreporting and so on. But again, it took me 10 minutes, literally took me 10 minutes. So I went through all of these programs and certainly based on what's on their website, the photographs, and this is our head research team. I didn't see one straight white male. Not one. They're all. It's pretty much an entire female thing. A couple of Asian gay guys, that sort of stuff, and again the proverbial black lesbians everywhere you look. But you'd think that, if you didn't know anything about the world and you just looked at the photos of these research teams, or supposed alleged research teams, then you'd think that black women were the smartest people on planet Earth, because they constitute half or more of the research team. Now, when you're actually looking at the lowest IQ, people on the face of the planet, but here they're represented as being the cutting edge of high-powered, kick-ass research. I mean, for goodness sakes. So that took me a bit by surprise. I hadn't realised that not only was the money being wasted or not accomplished anything and was being wasted, but I didn't realise it was being used as a mass diversity program for minorities who have no capability. And I wouldn't mind if everyone there was rigorously educated to the highest high bar of educational merit-based standards they ended up in, and if the entire team was black lesbian that had met that high standard, I wouldn't care. That would still be a good thing, because the finest minds, the best minds, the most capable minds, and well-educated minds in America are working on finding a cure for cancer. Then that's a benefit to everybody. I don't care. That's fine with me. That's totally okay with me. But it's not. It's the reverse. They put the least capable people in there, and then are just stealing taxpayer money while they run some ridiculous ideological, fanatical diversity program. Again, at the taxpayer expense. You've been Tacitus today at your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.